One of my favorite stories of Crazy Horse was at the Battle of Fetterman. We call it the Fetterman's Massacre. They called it the Battle of 100 Hands. Anyway, there was a new second lieutenant that was just in the fort, and it was Lieutenant Fetterman, and he was really hungry to make a name for himself, right? To show that he was going to be a really important American Army officer. So he wanted to get he wanted to defeat the Sioux. And he told them in a newspaper article that I can ride through the entire Sioux reservation, I can ride through the entire Sioux Nation with one squad of federal cavalry. That's, 20 men. Right? He said he could defeat the whole Sioux Cheyenne army with 20 soldiers. So anyway, he was going to get his chance. There was a lumber cutting party that went out from the fort, and the colonel in charge of the fort said, "Okay, Lieutenant Fetterman, go out and guard those lumberjacks, but under no circumstances do you cross that first ridge. Do not cross the first ridge." So Fetterman said, "Yes, sir, I'll do as you say." Got out there, and Crazy Horse got to the top of that first ridge that I was talking about, and he started yelling insults at the American troops there, the one company of cavalry that under Fetterman. They were yelling insults and sort of taunting them to come after him. He was all alone. Now, Fetterman remembered his orders, and he didn't go after this crazy Indian up on the ridge, quote unquote. So he just kind of stayed and kept his men in balance. But gradually he got more annoyed by this one crazy Indian, as he said. And he ordered his men to go run down that crazy Indian and kill him. And it was Crazy Horse. So Crazy Horse, in the absolute, a total symbol of what he really felt about these soldiers, he actually raised up his loincloth and mooned the American army. That's what he did. So this enraged these guys even more. They just charged after Crazy Horse with everything they had. All the soldiers under Fetterman's command, including Fetterman, was leading the charge to run down Crazy Horse. Crazy Horse was on foot. They were on horses. They just about caught him at the very, very top of the ridge, but Crazy Horse sort of dived over the ridge, and the soldiers got to the top of the ridge, and there they were ambushed by several hundred Lakota and Cheyenne warriors in an ambush. This was their chance to sort of ride through the whole Sioux Nation. Here was their chance. They didn't last 5 minutes. The battle lasted 5 minutes, and every single American soldier was killed that day by the Lakota under Crazy Horse. But the most important and the sort of most endearing quality of Crazy Horse that I'm attracted to mostly is that in spite of being one of the military geniuses of the 19th century, all right, if he'd have been German or English or American, they would be writing huge, huge books about Crazy Horse as the greatest general of the time. But anyway, the coolest thing about Crazy Horse was he also had a very deep social conscience. He really cared about the people that he was serving, that he was protecting. And there would be these old folks, that didn't have any children or grandchildren. They were sick, middle of these terrible winters out there on the plains. And Crazy Horse, without telling anybody about it, that he was doing it, would make sure those people had horses, buffalo robes, parfleches full of food, and make sure they got through those terrible winters. If someone was down on their luck, he'd be the first one to stand up and help them by giving them, their material riches, which was horses, buffalo robes, and food. But he never he was very Christ-like in that way. He never told anybody he was doing it, and he told the people that he was helping, "Don't tell anybody I'm doing this. It's just between you and me." That was the kind of guy Crazy Horse was. Now the rumor is true, the sort of historic wives' tale is the truth, that when he was killed and when he was murdered, they buried him in a Christian cemetery. And his parents and one of his friends, there was sort of a legend that there was a friend of Crazy Horse's or a cousin that was with him in every single battle Crazy Horse was with. He sort of had his back. Sort of like what Hamilton was to Washington. Anyway, that this friend and his Crazy Horse's parents dug up the corpse at midnight, and they didn't have any horses. The army had taken away all their horses on the reservation. So they dug up his corpse by hand. They didn't even have a shovel. They dug him up by hand and carried him by hand several miles off the reservation and buried him in a spot. To this day, we don't know where it is. That's the truth. That's true history. So anyway, Here's one of my favorite songs to sing from my latest sort of incarnation of my career. This is about that friend of Crazy Horse's. It's not about Crazy Horse, it's about his friend. This is called I Rode with Crazy Horse. Wum bum ba da 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 dum bum ba dum bum ba da 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 dum. Wum bum ba da 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 dum bum ba dum bum ba da 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 dum. Once I rode with Crazy Horse. I stood by him through his divorce. I stood by him when others ran. I stood by him when war began. I have no shame or dark remorse. Once I rode with Crazy Horse. They say this year is 1904. You're a college professor. Here to write down what I say from the day so far away. And that our cause you do endorse. Well, once I rode with Crazy Horse. We'll sharpen up your pencil good. Finally I'll be understood. At Greasy Grass we face Custer and all the power he could muster. I did my part to reinforce when I rode with Crazy Horse. Ago. We fought white men in the snow. We fought the Crow and Blackfeet too. We fought folks that look like you. I don't care much for you, of course, 'cause once I rode with Crazy Horse. Right on. Finally, our tribe surrendered. The reservations all dismembered. But a few of us stayed out. For a year we fought the doubt that we could beat relentless force. When I rode the Crazy Horse. On his day of reckoning, I stood by my friend and king. Some fools from our own reservation stabbed the hero of our nation. I tried to take that blade, of course, when I rode with Crazy Horse. Right on. Buried him where no one knows, where no one looks and no one goes. So no one can desecrate or commercialize his final fate. By the dried up water course, when I rode with Crazy Horse. I sit around to get my food, and whiskey puts me in the mood. I scream until my voice was hoarse. And once I rode with Crazy Horse. 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 Yes, I did. Walk on Tonka, you a Tonka Shanka, Whipco.